Oh, wrong view. We're off to a good start, boys. Let's go. All right, you alien bastards. In the words of my generation, let's check the metadata. So, quick sipperoo. Couple of things we wanna highlight about this data. But before we go any further, firstly, I want to say a huge thank you to JCMS. That is the online handle for the guy that puts this data together, and he has a website, and he has he has a website where he puts all of this data, and he actually is the one that goes through all like BCP and plugs all the data in and everything, and he is the one that actually makes the data. I don't make the data. So if you enjoy this kind of thing and you want to support this insight into the meta, great thing you can do is check out his website. Just go in there. Any traffic that goes to it really helps. And also he does have a Patreon, so consider signing up to that as well. So but big thank you to him for putting this data together and allowing us to do what we do. So that's the first thing I want to say. Second thing I want to say is this week, guys, was a quiet week. By quiet week, I mean we had 371 players. That is less than half. It's not quite a third, but it's maybe like 2/5 of what we would normally expect to see on a weekend. So it's less than half for sure. Now there is an instinct straight away to be like, oh, quiet weekend means nothing. No. That, quiet weekend, it means that the data is not worthwhile, blah, 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 blah. No. Quiet weekends actually are really interesting because you'll see the data really shift all over the place. But what you'll also find is sometimes armies which have a lot of potential but don't often get to show it off, do quite well. And you really get an idea of like, look, in your, maybe not at the top tier meta, but maybe in the local meta, the one that you're actually likely to be affected by. This is a good insight into that. So this quiet weekend, I think to me it indicates a more local meta, and it indicates an idea of how factions are likely to perform when you encounter them, presuming you're going to a local RTT, you're playing a local game, a casual game, or you're playing a casual/local GT. This data is still very, very valuable. In fact, in a funny sort of way, it lets us put some of the other noise to one side for a second and see where certain factions are. Interestingly, what you find with quieter weekends is some factions, which normally are doing very well, actually do a lot worse than a quieter weekend. I don't know exactly why that would be. You would think with like less competition knocking around, they would do better. But it's a phenomenon that I have noticed many times over the last few years when we've been doing this stuff, which is quieter weekends, the top dogs tend to do a bit worse, and the smaller fish get a chance to flex the muscles a little bit. Bear that in mind. When we're going through this. All right, starting off with the bottom faction with a single player, one whole player. Oh my god, poor bastard. All right, have a look. It was one player, so one player, and managing to win one game out of 5 at the GT. We have Deathwatch guy. Oh no. Deathwatch proving to be the control group. Deathwatch proving to be the exception that proves the rule. Deathwatch being a small faction which should be able to flex its muscles on a quiet weekend like this. And Deathwatch getting absolutely hammered. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that Deathwatch are at the bottom. I think that Deathwatch are in such a place where it doesn't matter if it's a quiet weekend, doesn't matter if it's a busy weekend, doesn't matter what's going on. Deathwatch are bottom tier. And we see these results go up and down a little bit, but generally speaking, it's the death throes of the Deathwatch, who are DOA. Yeah, so there's not really much you can report about a sample size of 1. I guess the only thing is that the fact that the sample size only is 1 out of everyone who played Warhammer this weekend that was registered on BCP, only 1 person took Deathwatch. Oof. Oof. Makes you sad. Makes me sad. Yeah. But I don't think there's anything we really need to add in there. Low player numbers, very low win. What main thing I would say is respect this one guy for fucking trying. Just respect to him trying. Didn't work, but he tried it. Now, next up, we have, I think, a faction which requires a little bit more analysis, and that is Orcs. Oh, man. 2 weeks ago, was it? 2 weeks ago, Orcs were riding high. They were riding high, they were riding dirty. 60% win rates, multiple viable play styles, goddamn flavorful as fuck. They went from being the inheritors of the universe, the inheritors of the galaxy, to this. One day you declare a war on the whole galaxy. The next you're sucking down Darjeeling with. Those of you that are curious what's happened in the last couple of weeks with Orcs is the balanced data slate. Green Tide got heavily nerfed. It's much harder to gain access to the invulnerable save and to keep access to it. And I don't believe you can get the reroll ones anymore. Orc Green Tide got really badly crippled, which is why no one ran it. Nobody ran Green Tide this week. Bad shit. And Bully Boys also got heavily nerfed with changes to Feel No Pain, points nerfs, the whole 9 yards. Now, Green Tide and Bully Boys were the two main competitive playstyles for Orcs, and with having with the other ones not really, the other areas like Warhorde and Dreadmob and Speed Freaks and the Great Hunt and all that kind of stuff. Is it that Great Hunt, whatever it might be, the Beast Snagger one. They really didn't have a huge amount of competitive potential. And unfortunately, it seems like GW, they took away from Orcs without giving them an alternative to pivot to. So, and that is heavily reflected in this win rate. So the Orcs had a 36% win rate. That is 4% down from their average of 40%. Bear in mind that average was, to give you an idea of how bad the Orc win rate has been for the last 2 or 3 weeks. That they did at one point had an average of like 50+% win rate. No. Their player numbers aren't anything to write home about either. This is a quiet week, yeah, but only 10 Orc players. It's pretty bad, considering there were 28 Space Marines, considering there were more Dark Angels players and Orc players, there were more Tyranid players. Like the player numbers are low, but they're not so low that 10 is an acceptable number. 10 is an understandable number. That, to me, shows the Orcs are... They're not being... I'm not saying they're dead, but and I'm sure the player numbers might bounce back next week, of course. But I think that is a good indicator of a lot of people jumping off the faction. A lot of people. Now, the Orcs were able... So they had 10 players who were able to win 15 games out of 42 played. And I believe they also had 2 players who went 4-1, which is very, very nice. But nobody with the Orcs was able to win a tournament. So essentially, you had 10 players. 5 Orc players out of that 10 ran Warhorde, aka the Index attachment. one of those players is able to go 4-1. So out of these 9 victories with Warhorde, 4 of them were achieved by one guy, which means for the remaining 4 players, there were 5 wins to go around. That means best case scenario, the other Warhorde players each got 1 victory. And worst case scenario is there was another guy that got like 3-2, and there were a couple of Warhorde players that got no victories, got completely whitewashed. Similar with Bully Boys, you had one player. You've only got 2 people playing that right now, and Dread Mob you had 3 people. So yeah, lots of orcs. I think those nerfs were too hard. I think the orc nerfs too hard. I think Bully Boys needed reining in. I think Green Tide shouldn't have been touched. Green Tide was preemptively nerfed, and I think what we're seeing here is GW making a mistake. GW has not done preemptive nerfs in a long time, and I think this is a reminder of why they shouldn't do them, because we're not seeing orcs. We're not seeing orcs pivot to a new thing. We're just seeing orcs dying. Hashtag preemptive nerfs are bad, and they should feel bad. In the last of the bottom 3, we have Chaos Knights. It's a bit of a weird one. So Chaos Knights are a 37% win rate in comparison to their 51% average win rate over the last few weeks. That's a big drop. They had 10 players, none of which were able to go 4-1. So everyone went 3-2 or worse. They won 17 out of 46 games. Now I have to say, I am surprised that we're not seeing Chaos Knights do better. They got a big boost with their big knights with the balanced data slate. If I was to theorize maybe why Chaos Knights are struggling, I would give 3 possible explanations. 1, it's a bad week. They happen. It very well may bounce back next week. 2, Chaos Knight players are currently still spamming dem War Dogs, and that approach isn't taking advantage of some of the buffs they've got, and so it's causing them to lose some games. But the third reason is the complete opposite. They stopped spamming Chaos War Dogs to try and fit in the new new rules for the big knights, and it turns out that the big knights are really shit, and so it turns out they might be a bit of a red herring. I don't know which one's which. I wouldn't jump to any major conclusions with Chaos Knights off one bad week. I would put them on the watch list, but I wouldn't put them on the DNR list. Yeah, we've done the bottom 3. Now we're moving into the sort of the bottom half, as it were, and we've got Chaos Space Marines. I think this is one of those times when you have a good faction that's had a bad weekend. That would be my interpretation of this. All right, because I think last week when we had a very busy weekend, Chaos Space Marines were doing significantly better. But there's still some important data that we can pull out here. Firstly, 28 players. Now that's considering it's a quiet weekend, that's almost 10%. That's maybe like sort of 7 or 8% of people were running Chaos Space Marines. That's a big chunk of the community, considering there's 26 goddamn factions that you can run. That's a big portion. So I think the Chaos Space Marines, this 40% is a blip. I think the real number to look at here is the healthy player numbers, and that seems that's still there. We've also had 3 people go 4-1, and we've also had 1 person win a tournament this weekend. Which tournament did they win? Let's have a little gander, shall we? Was it a biggie or a little? I mean, remember last week, Chaos Space Marines won the largest tournament of the 57 player event. That is a very, very solid sized tournament. Yeah. I was going to add my tournament in Darks in the list. He won it. Ah, very good. Roving reporter, boots on the ground. I like it, Tom's the Q. So yeah, there's a lot to indicate here that Chaos Space Marines are actually fine, and that this is what we talked about at the beginning, where sometimes you have good factions which do weirdly worse on quieter weekends. Now, there is still some other things we compare into here. So we can see that Pack-Bound Zealots has actually done very well this weekend and actually won a tournament, which is good. We can see that Renegade Raiders continues to be the most popular, and it's still very good. 2 players going 4-1 with Renegade Raiders. So despite the change up with Pariah Nexus and everything, it looks like Renegade Raiders is still the go-to. Although it does seem like Pat Bound Zealots does have the ability to go all the way. Soulforged War Pack. Not much to write home about here. 4 players managing to win 8 out of 20 games, but no one went 4-1 with that. So it seems that Soulforged Water Pack it rattles itself to death before it can quite get the reliable 4-1. Fellhammer Siege Host, after having a surprising surge last week, has completely gone belly up this week with only a 22% win rate, with 2 players only managing to win 2 games between them. Oof. Likewise, we have Dread Talons. Haven't had a good weekend. So yeah, Dread Talons, there was a lot of hype around this attachment. I know a lot of Night Lords players were very, very excited about it, but it seems like even on a busy weekend, it does dog shit. It seems on a quiet weekend, it does dog shit. Veterans of the Long War has had a big blip. Remember, last weekend it did really, really good. This weekend it's done very badly. There were 3 players, and between them they won 3 out of 15 games. So best case scenario, they each won 1 game. Or you had someone won 2, someone won 1, someone won 0, or you had one guy win all 3 and 2 people go 0-5. Either way, Veterans not having a good week, but I suppose it's a blip. What is not a blip, and what makes me really, really, really sad, no! My favourite detachment, the Deceptors, the Alpha Legion, had a 0% win rate. 0. And that's not because no one turned up. Someone went to a tournament with Deceptors and just laminated themselves against the meta 5 games in a row. Whoever you are, Deceptor guy, you're a brave, beautiful son of a bitch. But it was not a good weekend for you, buddy, and I hope you're doing alright. So it seems, looking at Chaos Space Marines, it seems like Deceptors are bad, Dread Talons are bad, Fellhammer all over the place, Soulforged Warp Pack struggling it's got potential but struggling to make the most of it. Veterans had a blip, and Renegade Raiders and Pat Bound Zealots continuing to have good results no matter the weekend. The one that's conspicuously absent is Chaos Cult, but you need a lot of models to make that work. So it might just have been that no one was willing to lay down like 180 cults or something crazy to get it to work this week. Yeah, it's kind of like Unending Swarm before it got nerfed. Like you'd see it, some weeks it would just want to get run, and then some weeks it would come in with like 60% win rate, but there's only like 2 people running it. So Chaos Space Marines, overall, I don't think that 40% is really reflective. I think we can see, yeah, it won a tournament this weekend. However you slice it, that's good. Black Templars next. Black Templars coming in with a 41% win rate. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Black Templars really seeming to struggle with the lack of Ironstorm Spearhead. They are down to they only got 41% win rate this week. That is actually above their average of 39%, which is pretty tragic. They actually had 8 players, 2 of which were able to go 4-1, but no one was able to go 5-0. They won 16 out of 39 games. And Gladius Task Force and Righteous Crusade was similarly sized. One had 3, one had 5. Gladius Task Force, for the second week in a row, Black Templars and Gladius seem to go together really, really well. But for every week in a row, Righteous Crusaders remains the most popular one. And it seems like Righteous Crusaders actually is pretty good because someone was able to go 4-1 with it. But the majority of people running Righteous Crusaders are fluffy players that are running it because goddamn, that's what their Black Templars are. They are Righteous Crusaders. So I don't think that Black Templars are like a really, really dog shit faction. We can see they have the potential to go 4-1, and they're doing that every weekend. I just think that the player numbers have gone down a lot. Yeah, everyone has pivoted to Gladius or Righteous Crusade, and that's fine. But that's just good. It's good to know when you come across Black Templars, you got a question to ask. Are you Gladius or are you Righteous? And whichever one they pick might heavily influence how difficult the game might be. And if they say Gladius, they probably know what they're doing. They'll probably try hard in. They'll probably whacker in. If they say Righteous Crusade, you might be in for a more fun game. That's not the shit on the Gladius people. It's just the Gladius seems to be the new competitive detachment for Black Templars. So essentially, business as usual, but instead of an Ironstorm, it's a Gladius every so often. Dark Angels. Ooh, Dark Angle, Sergeant Angle. So the Dark Angels they received a bunch of buffs from the banned status slate. It does not seem this week to have had a big impact. Last week, Dark Angels were actually looking very interesting. And this week, we're seeing what might seem like a little bit of a regression. There's a bit of evolution and a bit of devolution here. So on the one hand, we have got 12 Dark Angel players, and we had an average of 41% win rate, which seems bad. But then you can see we had one guy who was able to go 3-2 with them with Vanguard Spearhead, which I think that's a blip, to be honest. I think that's a... What has surprised me the most is, despite all the Terminator buffs, we're just not seeing people running the goddamn Terminator detachment with any success. Like with Inner Circle Task Force, like 3 people ran this thing and they only were able to win 5 out of 15 games. I mean, that is really difficult. No one went 4-1, so everyone went 3-2 or worse. It seems like my take with Dark Angels is they lost Ironstorm, they got a bunch of Terminator buffs. The Terminator buffs do not seem to have shifted the needle. No, the needle's definitely shifted because Dark Angels have gone... what I would say is the nerfs have shifted the needle down. The Terminator buffs haven't managed to put the needle back to where it should be. Time will tell if Deathwing can make a comeback. So I want to say, let's talk about Tyranids. I don't know how I feel about Tyranids. They seem all over the place. And it seems like some changes have resulted in very predictable outcomes. And it seems like some changes have completely different directions to what I was expecting. So what I mean by that is, if we take a look at this set of data here, there's a very obvious missing detachment. That's Unending Swarm. No one ran it. Out of 21 Tyranid players, which is healthy numbers, by the way. Out of 21 Tyranid players, no one ran Unending Swarm. That's not surprising even slightly. That just proves that they completely botched that detachment with that update. It's not the Unending Swarm now, it's actually just the Ending Swarm. And the Swarm has ended, in fact. On other news, we've had a lot of people, like Tyranids get better artillery. And we've had Tyranids get better like lethal hits and better like strength in melee and better shooting with like the Casino Cannon, which is no longer the Casino Cannon. And so I actually thought that Invasion Fleet would really start ticking up. And it just seems to have stayed the same. So it's still the most popular detachment. It had a 45% average win rate this weekend, which is very similar to 47%. Someone was able to go 4-1 with it, but no one won a tournament. And yeah, I mean, I really thought that would be higher. I think maybe we need to wait a little bit longer, let the changes percolate in, because Invasion Fleet right now should be really, really good. You've got everything you want. You can have lethals and you can have sustain popping off at the same time from multiple sources, be it Tervigons, Hive Tyrants. You can have your cake and eat it now. And yeah, I'm just expecting that to go up. I'm surprised it hasn't. I've also heard of people tell me that Assimilation Swarm should be really good now, yet for the second week in a row it's not blowing me away at all. It seems to be doing quite badly. What's really picked up is Vanguard Onslaught. Surprisingly so. It's now the second, not the win rate. The win rate's complete dog shit. But there are almost as many, this week there were almost as many people playing Vanguard as they were playing Invasion Fleet. I have never seen anything get close to rivaling Invasion Fleet in terms of player numbers. What I am seeing here, and I think what I'm seeing here, and I think we saw this last week as well, is Vanguard seems to be where the Tyranids are pivoting to. Landing Swarm's gone. Crush Stampede seeing a little bit of use here and there. Invasion, Assimilation Swarms, Synaptic Nexus. Yeah, they're all seeing a little bit of play. But the big two now seem to be Invasion Fleet and Vanguard. That's significant. Yeah. So if you're going to a tournament, be aware of Vanguard Onslaught. It's very, very tricksy. It really could catch you off guard. And if they're leveraging a lot of the access to the lethals now, like the Hive Time and stuff, you might find that Vanguard Onslaught might have solved its issue, where it has sneaky but no beaky, no like power. If it's got some power, it might do all right. Now, what's kind of tempering all that for me is this 37% win rate and no one going 4-1. Either that means that people are trying Vanguard and it's just not working, and they'll go back to Invasion Fleet. Or what this shows is people are getting used to Vanguard and it takes a bit more skill to pilot than people were expecting, and therefore the win rate might go up in the future. I think the one to watch for NIDS now is Vanguard, and one or two things will happen. Either people will get it to work and the win rate will start shooting through and the number of players will start shooting through the roof, or they just can't quite get it to sing and everyone will go back to Invasion. There does seem to be a lot of these kind of lists coming out at the moment, isn't there? We've got a Wolf Jail, Brute Jail. We had Orc Jail for a bit, that pre-Codex, and now we've got Snake Jail. Seems like there's this general trend of people trying to. There seems to be a uptick in factions which can do pressure lists. Make sure you've got the ability to go round the barriers or enough firepower to go fucking through the barriers quickly. If you can clear them in 2 turns, you're good to go. You're going to be in trouble. Next, we've got Space Marines. So Space Marines seeing technically for them an uptick. So Space Marines had a 38% win rate on average over the last couple of weeks. That's actually, this week is actually up 42%. And we've got we had 19 players. 3 of them went 4-1, but no one won any tournaments. Space Marines, by and large, Space Marines is same shit, different day. You're gonna have a lot of people who want to win with Space Marines, going like some sort of specialized Space Marine, like Black Templars or Dark Angels or Blood Angels or Space Wolves. So they get all the Space Marine shit and all the Space Wolf shit, for example. So that still seems to be the case. But the big one though, like there's a lot of stuff here that makes sense. Ironstorm in the shitter. Gladius kind of showing its potential. Yeah, only a 40% win rate, but 2 people went 4-1 with it. Vanguard Spearhead, struggling to show some potential, but struggling to draw people in. Firestorm Assault, someone actually went 4-1 with it. I guess at the end of the day, movement wins games. So yeah, it seems like Gladius is going to be the go-to, like Black Templars, like with all the space attachments. I think outside of ones that have got like a specific playstyle in mind, like Space Wolves, I think Gladius is going to be the new go-to. The biggie though is Anvil Siege Force guy, baby. Jez went 3-2. There we go, man. There we go. Technically, I don't mean to alarm anyone. Technically, Anvil Siege Force was the highest performing Space Marine detachment this weekend. The same. In fact, let's just go through. Dark Angels, it was Vanguard. That was 60%, but that only... that's joint first. That's joint first. Black Templars only had a 57% win rate with Gladius. Let's see what else we've got. Space Wolves, Gladius. Oh no, Champions of Rust was technically the highest performing one. Damn it. So, technically, to rephrase, Anvil Siege Force was the joint second highest rated Space Marine detachment. This is a blip. This is what happens when you have one dude who manages to win 3 games out of 5. it's fun, but the main takeaway here should be Space Marines of all flavors are pretty much, outside of the really specialist ones, are going Gladius. Be ready for the Gladius, boys. Look into it, research it, understand how those combat doctrines are going to work. Be prepared for it when you go into your tournaments. Eldar! My, how the pointy ears continue to just exist. So I don't think there's anything particularly new to write home about with Eldar. Their win rate this weekend is 45%. That's very much in line with their win rate of 47%. They had 18 players, which is a very respectable number. One of those players is able to go 4-1. I think if there's one thing that stands out for me with Eldar this week is, even though it's a quieter week, and sometimes you get really, really wacky results with a quieter week, what we saw is Eldar just stay the course. That to me is a really good indicator that the Eldar are in the right spot right now. Because it doesn't matter if it's a quiet week, it doesn't matter if it's a busy week, they just perform very consistently. Between 40 and 50%, someone every week someone or many ones manage to go 4-1 each week, but no one, occasionally get a tournament win, but yeah, they're not the boogeyman that they once were. Dare I say it? In the grand scheme of things, big picture, Eldar are balanced. Controversial. Never thought I'd say it, but I think this is proof of more than anything that right now, Eldar are right in the fucking zone, right in the fucking pocket, boys. It's a good thing. Astra Militarum. This week, we only had a 45% win rate. Oh, slacking off. Last week we had a 53% win rate. This week only 45%. Oh, that's it. Clearly we're in the shitter. Clearly in the toilet. Clearly, it's very funny how easy and how quickly we get used to new circumstances. A few weeks ago, could only dreamed of a 45% win rate as being like a bad result for us. No, 45%. That's not bad at all. 45. The guard win rate. There's a couple of things. I'm going to throw a few different things out there. Some of them are going to seem kind of contradictory, but it's because things are happening at the same time and at different points in time. It'll make sense. I'll just riff for a bit. Okay. Firstly, it's important to recognize that the guard win rate has been about 45% from the beginning of 10th edition. Sometimes it goes down a little bit. Sometimes it goes up a little bit. But by and large, the guard win rate really hasn't strayed too far from being 45%. It's been very consistently delivering that sort of 45%, and that's fine. That's in the Goldilocks zone. There's something that's important to remember, that GW considers 45% to be in the Goldilocks zone, like between 45 and 55%. That's where they want all factions to be, and Guard has pretty much been there since the beginning. Pretty much been there. So 45% is absolutely in line with where we would normally expect to be. I do think that there are a number of reasons for why the decrease from 53% has happened. Firstly, you've just got natural fluctuation. Win rates go up and down a bit. Secondly, it's a quieter week. You often find that factions that sometimes are doing very, very well do weirdly badly on a quieter week. Sometimes they do really well, and you often find factions that weren't doing as well, or that were kind of middling, suddenly shoot up to the top. It's why sometimes we've seen Guard, when they've been absolutely in the fucking shitter, shoot up to like 2nd or 3rd place for a week, because it was just a quieter week. But this time, I think Guard are in the opposite camp. It's where it's a quiet week and we're a good faction, so we've come down a little bit. I think that's one possible explanation. Another possible explanation for describing the fluctuation is we've had pretty good player numbers this week. 16 player numbers is very, very respectable, considering there's only about 300 people playing this weekend in these adults. 16 players, not too bad. And I think what that could represent is a lot of people that maybe are coming back to the faction. They sort of went, oh, I'm not gonna Guard are nerfed, they're 20-30% win rate, they're in the shitter, I'm not interested in them now. I've gone, oh no, they're actually good again. Or people that were tempted by them, I've gone, oh well, Guard actually seem to have done alright, I'll jump on. You always find that Guard is quite an experience-based faction. You always find that the first 10 games you play with Guard, you lose. A lot of people just buy an army pre-painted and take it straight into a tournament and then get surprised when they don't do well, especially with Guard. So it might represent a lot of people coming back to the faction, but I think more likely it could represent a lot of people coming to the faction who maybe were on the fence, have seen some good results, like, no, Guard are settling down to be pretty good for 10th. But they don't appreciate that you are going to lose a lot of games with Guard at first. So there's that. There's also, as John Chaser said, there's a really good chance that this is just the casuals. It's a quieter weekend. A lot of the more cutthroat players aren't playing this weekend. There's not like really big major events on. So you're just seeing the casuals show what they can do, and the cutthroat players will be back next week or the week after. Those are all explanations for what can happen. In my opinion, I think that Guard, I think 45% win rate is fine for us, but I think that we can do a lot better than that, and I think we will do a lot better than that. I think getting access to lethals on a large scale is only a good thing for us, and it gives us. We've got a big damage boost. Have we lost our indirect fire? Oppressiveness, yes. Is indirect fire still good? Yeah, we still have the best artillery in the game. If everyone's artillery is worse but ours is still the best, that still gives us a distinct advantage. Whereas every other faction is completely sacking off indirect fire now, I think Guard still get a huge boost from having a bit of indirect fire on the list, seasoning a couple of basilisks or a couple of fobs. And I think more so than ever, you might find that yields good results. Because if you've got complete freedom in the artillery duel, it's not even a duel, someone didn't even turn up. So I think that this is a blip for the Guard, and I think we may see, as we always see with Guard, when people think that they're good, we see the win rate come down sharply. So what happens with Guard is they're good, everyone who was running them goes to a tournament and the win rates go up and up and up, and then everyone sees that, a lot of people jump on, the win rate tanks, and then slowly starts climbing up again. That's what we've seen, that literally all through 8th edition, all through 9th edition. We've seen that all through the beginning of 10th edition. The moment the Guard win rate is tempting to outside players, it falls because they all jump on and they take their 10 game losses. Then it starts rising up again. People see the good win rate, it jumps down again. This is the Guard win rate because they're a very experienced heavy faction. There are other factions like that, don't get me wrong, but Guard is the one that we know, because we've seen this trend. We've seen this happen before, boys. So all we're in now is all the white shields are getting the shit slapped out of them. It will go up again for sure. Overall, the number one, the two bits of data in here that I want to take away is that the player numbers are very healthy, the average is very healthy, and we still had someone go 4-1. There we are. However, our shame is total and unforgivable because the goddamn Tau beat us this week. Damn your ass! Goddamn Tau! Goddamn, for several weeks we've been above them. For several weeks we've had them on the ropes, and then this week they've jibbed us. They've bloody jibbed us. We've been diddled by the Monka. Let's look at the Tau a little bit more. I did warn that the Tau were on the way. It seems like the Tau are starting to arrive. We're seeing them coalesce. We're seeing familiar tactics, familiar win rates appear each week. And on the whole, we are seeing Tau consistently pulling in results now. And I think they've only just started. I think Tau are, after the last data slate, very spicy position. So, firstly, they had a 47% win rate. That is slightly above, but pretty much in line with their 46%. They had 27 players It is a very, very rare cold day in hell. Cow community is pulling down more players. The guard community. But like that, that's insane. 5 of their players, almost 20% of their players went 4-on-1. And in fact, one of their players actually won a tournament. Now, in here, we are seeing 3 detachments that are really consistently pulling it off. That's not true. There's 2 detachments that are consistently doing well, and there's one unsurprise and there's one big surprise. So Cayune being the highest rated detachment this time is a surprise. A surprise to be sure, and an unwelcome one. 53% win rate for Cayune, which is 6% above their normal. We're also seeing it still be popular. Ansel went 4-1 with it. Last week, I said that I thought Cayune was basically all the Tau players that had forgotten to move on to Montca, but it seems like they're still making it work. I guess if you plan around it, you build around it, maybe even you put some secondaries around it, Cayune has the potential. Cayune is one of those where if you can, I've done it a lot with guard. If you can play for the turn 3, turn 4, turn 5 win, go for it. I do think this might be a blip though. I do think Montca overall is stronger, but we will wait and see. Speaking of Montca, it's pulling in the results consistently. 49% this week, 50% over the last 2 weeks. Still on going 4-1 with it. Good numbers of players. Yeah. It's hard to turn your nose up at Montca. The only weakness it has is if you go first and the enemy's very, very cagey. Otherwise, it's 3 turns of god tier firepower. Now, what's really stood out to me is the Retaliation Cadre. So the Retaliation Cadre, 41% win rate, in line with 42% average. 9 players, so a lot of people still trying it out. 3 people. That's the most out of any of the Tau detachments this weekend were able to go 4-1. And some, actually 2 people went 4-1 and 1 person went all the way and won a tournament. Let's see what size of tournament they won, out of curiosity. Was it a Big E or a Little E? It was a Little E. It was a Little E. 27 players, 5 rounds. It was a Little E. But a tournament is a tournament win. Last week, Retaliation Cadre, I think, did weirdly well. It seems to have a really low win rate, but then weirdly high 4-on-1 rate. Yeah. I poo-poo Retaliation Cadre. I'm now not doing it. I'm now not poo-pooing it. I've now got an eye on it. The detachment, which is really good at battle suits, just got a shitload of cheap battle suits. Maybe it's going to turn the franchise around. Definitely one to watch. All right. Recruit Hunting Pack, though, is dead. Recruit Jail is dead. It's not coming back. It's over the last 2 weeks, it's got an average of a 9% win rate. I don't need to say anymore. One guy this week was able to go 1-4. Chicken Guard is dead, and unfortunately, Commander Nearsight's video is it's aged like milk. And that's really sad because I wanted that video. I like that video. I thought it was really good, but yeah, it's solid law, right? You do a video and then something comes out and just completely invalidates it. Happens all the time. You guys have seen it happen on this channel. You've seen it happen on other channels. The nature of 40k, it's constantly in flux. Long story short, Tau are starting to flex. I think the 6th Fear expansion is going to be arriving soon, and I think we all need to be ready for it. Inheritors of the meta, I think Guard have the potential to do it, but I think Guard will take their time getting there and might always just end up just being a nice mid-table faction, just consistently doing good shit mid-tables. Tau I think they could be inherited to the meta. Give them time to I think they're going to snowball. I said this a few months ago. All Town need is one viable build, for them to share that around, and for them to start spamming it, and they'll start putting the results in. I think they are zoning in on that viable build, and I think worryingly it's not one viable build. It might be 2 or 3 viable builds. Tau have got potential. Let's see if they can wield it. After that, we've got the GSC. Let's see how many factions we've got left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we're almost halfway. So we're going to do GSC and AdMech. That will cover the bottom half. And then we'll get into the top half, and then sort of top 8 and top 3. Yeah. So, GSC. Hey, 47%. It's not bad. What is really fucking bad is only 3 players. Oh, no. Oh, man. Oh. That makes me sad. I need to have some pretzels to make myself feel better. Ah. I saw that 47% and I was like, hey, everyone who shot on that GSC codex is going to have to eat humble pie. And it turns out they don't. Any faction with so few players will have widely and wildly fluctuating results. And the sample size is so small that it's hard to draw any conclusions. However, I wouldn't rush to any conclusions either. GSC have always been an historically small community, and this is a very, very quiet weekend. Like I said, way less than half what we'd normally expect on a tournament weekend. Like 300 something players. It very well may be just a quiet weekend. But what I think is sad is that Digital had their codex recently, and we haven't seen any interest or resurgence around people wanting to make that faction work. People have seen the codex, they've kind of dismissed it, and they've gone, fuck it, we'll play something else. Yeah, I think GSC are just in hibernation at the moment. That if you twisted my arm, I think GSC are in hibernation. A lot of people have Genes of the Occult. A few people have Genes of the Occult as their main army. A lot of people have Genes of the Occult as their second, if not third army. People often start with they'll start with Space Marines or something, and then they'll go over to another army, and then they'll sort of weirdly then suddenly, without being able to explain it, they'll just want to get a GSC army. But because it's their third army, it's often the one that sits on the shelf and then comes out when they're good. When they're bad, they just sit on the shelf and it's just a hobby project. I think the problem with GSC this edition, the whole cult ambush thing is fucked this edition.
Reporting for duty, sir.
Hey, if I may riff for a second about GSC. So, let's go. After GSC, we've got AdMech, and then we'll catch up on the super chats. So, AdMech is in a bit of a turnaround.
Victory is assured.
So, nice. Okay, let's get down to the straight. Exactly, Matthew. Exactly. AdMech is in a bit of a turnaround. 47% win rate this week. Slightly above, but basically in line with their 46% average. 11 players. Wow. If you asked me at the beginning of the edition if I thought we would see more AdMech players than GSC players, based on the rules, I would have said no. If you would have asked me, would we see double digits of AdMech on a quiet weekend? No. I never would have said that.
For duty,
this is the most important number. This shows that the community has seen the changes that GW has put in and has got faith in those changes having an impact. Double digits of AdMech players on busy weekends didn't used to happen. Double digits of AdMech players on quiet weekends, that's significant. We had one person go 4-1 with AdMech. Well done to that person. No tournament wins yet, though. It seems like so things have changed, but as much as things have changed, things have stayed the same. We've seen Skitari Hunter cohort remain the most popular choice for the AdMech, and it's where the 4-1 came from. Interestingly, we're seeing the win rate actually go down this week. I suspect that might be, shall we call it, the guard effect, where people are jumping on AdMech and they're jumping what they know to be good for AdMech, but they're not quite getting those wins yet with them. But the experienced people are getting the 4-1s, and everyone else is getting like 3 and 2, 2 and 3 kind of thing. We've Cohort Cybernetica is interesting. A couple of weeks in a row, we've seen some people run it, and a couple of weeks in a row, it's produced some good results. 54% is, yeah, it's interesting. Radzone Core is a very small sample size, though. Yeah, very small sample size. Both Radzone Core players went 2 and 3, I think. Maybe, yeah, no one went 4 and 1, so they both had to go 2 and 3. Grey Knights, Grey Knights, Grey Knights. So they're still doing all right. Grey Knights coming in at 49%, pretty much in line with their 50% win rate, their average. 14 players, and 3 of them managed to go 4 and 1. That's very, very impressive. I think Grey Knights are in a really, really comfy, really interesting spot right now. Really, really nice spot right now. They're kind of a bit of an Eldar spot where they have the potential to go 4 and 1. Occasionally, they'll get an RTT or a GT win, but with the Dread Knights being nerfed, and you're seeing like a lot of Grey Knight players running 1 or 2 less over the Dread Knights. I think the faction's finding that nice middle ground where they've got enough punch from the big stuff, but they can't only go in on big stuff, because then they start losing out on points like Pariah Nexus and stuff like that. So I think Grey Knights, they're doing what they've been doing since the beginning, right? They're jumping up and down. They've got a lot of potential to score secondaries. Pariah Nexus, more so than anything, looks like it's really, really secondary focused. So I think Grey Knights are in a really good position for Pariah Nexus. I think that where Grey Knight players will struggle and might have to make some hard choices is they have to choose between firepower and scoring. They can squeeze both in. It will remain to be seen if they can squeeze both in and have enough of each. Because, like, what's the old saying? It's better to whole-ass one thing than half-ass two. We'll wait and see. I think the big thing that we've noticed with Grey Knights is for a week or two, they had a big influx in players. And those were all the Custodes players, basically, who have now gone back to playing Custodes. I've played Grey Knights post-Pariah Nexus, and they scored really well. They scored really well. In fact, the battle pool that'll be coming out, that was meant to come out this weekend, but had to get pushed back because it turned out that filming in 8K almost made Evan's computer explode. Yeah, I think that you'll see that they have the ability to be, when played well, to score phenomenally. But I think they've lost a little bit of sting in their tail. 40k is, at its heart, a game about destroying each other's models. So will them losing that sting mean that they're gonna start struggling a little bit? I don't know. My gut instinct is Grey Knights will be alright for Pariah. I think they'll do okay. Oh my god, it's beeping. My watch is beeping, guys. Don't worry, it's not anything on you. Can I stop it from beeping? Jesus. There we go. They think he's beeping at me all the time. So moving on, we've got Imperial Knights. So Imperial Knights seem to be doing a little better than Chaos Knights. And I think what we said about Chaos Knights kind of holds true for Imperial Knights here. Or should we say they're kind of like the opposite. So Imperial Knights were already using Big Knights. And so now that Big Knights have been buffed, we're seeing Imperial Knights do a little bit better. 51% above 48% indicates that things are going in the right way for them. 19 players is a really, really healthy number of players. Not since the early days of 10th have I seen more Knight players than factions like Grey Knights and stuff like that. And they even had someone go 4 and 1. And it seems like every week we see a Knight player going like 4 and 1, or 1 or 2 Knight players going 4 and 1. Knights seem to be in a good position. And I think it's big, as Dark just says, Imperials use more big ones more frequently. They got improved with going through walls. Yeah. I think Chaos Knights are probably still trying to spam the little ones, or they're trying to get used to using the big ones. Imperial Knights have already got that experience, and so it's just what they were doing already, getting better. translates to much faster turnaround of good results. Chaos Demons. Okay, everyone, hold on. Hold on. The impossible has happened. The impossible has occurred. Chaos Demons have won a tournament. It's never been done. Week in, week out, they go 4-1, but they never get that 5-0. And even if they do win a tournament, they only ever win it by going like 4 wins, 0 losses, and a draw. This week, not only did they win a tournament, but they did it 5-0. I saw it before when I was scrolling around. Where is it? Where is it? Where are you? There you go. 32 player, 5-round event in Canada. There you are. There you are. Will this be, are we seeing, is this a momentary blip for the Chaos Demons? Or are they starting to turn this franchise around? Well, take the franchise to the next level, we say. Chaos Demons are a very strong faction. They have been 4-1 fiends for a long, long time. For all of 10th edition, pretty much. But this is the first time when this is the first time when we saw this is one of the first times. I think one of less than 5 times where we've seen them get a 5-0. Legit 5-0. Chaos Demons, eh? Is this the hot chaos summer? Hashtag hot chaos summer. Maybe. But it does certainly seem like it, because we've got Chaos Demons and then we've got Death Guard, who also had a 51% win rate, who also had really decent player numbers, who also had 4 players go 4-1 and also won a tournament. What did Death Guard win? I feel like it was a Little. Another Canadian event. I had deja vu then for a second. I saw a Black Cat walk by. 5-0 in Canada. So it looks like Canada has fallen. Canada has become the Chaos Wastes, and that's where the Eye of Terror is now located. And everyone's been looking for an excuse to nuke Canada. We can now do it. Interesting though. We already knew that. 51% against an average of 47%, 14 players, 3 going 4-1, 1 person going 5-0, winning a GT. I've been saying since Death Guard had their, not from the beginning of 10th, because they were terrible at the very beginning, since they had their fix, I have been saying that Death Guard have been an incredibly solid faction. I think what we're seeing here is Death Guard showing what they can do on a slightly quieter weekend at slightly smaller events. Death Guard, Chaos Demons, I now would rank those as RTT winning. I would rank those as local GT winning, but I don't think they've got enough janky shit to be like major or super major winning on a consistent basis. But I think if you have Death Guard and you take them to your local RTT and you've got a good list and you're well practiced with them, you take them to your local GT and you've got a good list and you practice with them, I think that you are very comfortable going a positive win-loss ratio. And I think it's very possible you take the gold. I don't think, like I said, I just don't think they've got the spunk to go 8-0 at fucking Super Major, but 5-0, 32 players. Yeah, I think that's the goal. I think that's the Goldilocks zone for the Death Guard and their ilk. We've then got World Eaters. World Eaters, which technically had a higher win rate. They had a 53% win rate than the Death Guard, and that is actually higher than their average of 51%. So they're going in the right direction. More players as well, 16 players, and 25% of those players went 4-1, but no one won a tournament. World Eaters are a funny one because they really can go 3-2, 4-1, just regularly, just smash. But I think that they're still limited by their very, very one-dimensional aspect of run at you, chop you up, and kill you. And if they kill, main, burn, World Eaters kill, maim, burn, but if they can only kill and maim and not burn, they can't quite get the tournament win. I think what we're going to see with World Eaters is we'll see the win rate. It'll be like Space Wolves. We'll see the win rate keep going up, and yet there'll be a conspicuous, and we'll see the 4-1 rate go up, but I think there'll be a conspicuous lack of consistent tournament wins. They'll get one here and there, because occasionally you can just brute force your way to it. You can always have a good run at an RTT or a GT, but I think World Eaters are going to be held back from their one-dimensional playstyle, and that will limit them from taking the throne. We've then got Necrons! Fuck's sake, why can't they just die? So Necrons really just, no matter how much they get nerfed, they really don't want to let go. Necrons are in a really funky position because they've got a 53% win rate, which is high. That's higher than their average of 50% win rate, so they're going in the right direction, which is good. They've got 30 players, which is good. 8 of those players went 4-1, which is good. And yet they haven't won any tournaments. I feel like they didn't win any last week as well. Are Necrons now in the same zone as Eldar, where they're just slightly too expensive, or they just slightly don't have what it takes to get that 5-0? Like, they're not quite janky enough. They're not quite overpowered enough. But they'll go 4-1, but they won't get that 5-0. It's kind of ironic that if Necrons and Eldar are in the same clubhouse. Now, diving into this a little bit more, Obsidian's Phalanx did have an 80% win rate, but there's only one guy who ran it. So it's it's a very small sample size. Well done to that guy, but we need to see if more people can do the same thing. Hypocrite Legion, just fuck off and die. I'm sorry. I am just very bored of Hypocrite Legion being the go-to. I don't want to see it. I want to see it mixed up. I just want to see something else, you know. After playing Necrons non-stop, a lot of 10th edition, fucking Hypocrite, man. Something else. What I am excited to see, they have done well though. 54%, 53 versus 53%. 16 wins and 3 people going 4-1. What's got me excited again though, and it could just be a blip, but what's got me excited again is Awakened Dynasty! Hey! So the Awakened Dynasty last week didn't do very well. And I got very sad because I have dreams of having a Silver Tide. And last week the Awakened Dynasty was like, and that made me sad. And this week, the Awakened Dynasty is doing very well with a 52% win rate, and a third of all players that ran Awakened Dynasty went 4-1. Yes, I think it fluctuates a lot. I think that it's a small sample size every week, but I still think that Awakened Dynasty has a lot of potential. The big question is Awakened Dynasty going to take the mantle away from Canoptic Court in the long run? For a long time, Canoptic Court was the rival to Hypercrypt, and there was even a few weeks, and I even declared that Canoptic Court had won out in the long war with Hypercrypt. It turns out that was bullshit. That was a bad take by me, and I got that wrong. Hypercrypt is undying. So, but Canoptic Court seems to have really fallen out of favour. It still seems like you can go 4-1 with it, but it seems like Canoptic Court has... And I read Canoptic Court as Gopnik Court. So Gopnik Court, I'm calling it that now going forward. Gopnik Court has fallen out of favour in terms of player numbers. Awakened Dynasty seems to have fallen into favour with player numbers. Like I said, the thing to what Hypercrypt's here to stay, and it's here to be annoying for ages. Fine. What I am excited about is to see if Awakened Dynasty can replace Canoptic Court as the heir, as the second in command, as the viceroy, as it were. Awakened Dynasty, Silver Tide. I need an excuse to print off 120 Garwold warriors to use as Garwold Jafar as warriors for my pseudo Necron army. So come on, baby! 1,000 Suns back in business, it would seem. 1,000 Suns, 9 players, lowish numbers. I have to say, I did not think we'd see less Thousand Suns players and AdMech players, even on a one-off. 53% win rate is... it's good. I'm hearing rumblings around the internet water cooler and around competitive chats and communities that I'm involved with. That Thousand Suns is still... it's still clapping cheeks. So Thousand Suns this week, and clearly they've got potential because they won a tournament this week. They won a big tournament. They won our tournament. Let's see what size it was. To be fair, what is going on in Canada? What is going on in Canada? They won a 24-player 5-round tournament in Canada. Canada has gone dark, boys. 3 tournaments in Canada have been won by chaos. I don't know what to say. Canada's gone dark. Canada's lost. Fortress Canada is lost. Canada is the polar fortress. Oh my god, Thanatos is coming true. Speaking of changing landscapes, fuck's sake. They're back, boys. They're back, and there's nothing we can do about it. We can just cry. Goddamn Adeptus Custodes. See, this is what happens when you give them an inch. Custodes got a 55% win rate again, and I guarantee it'll keep going up. It might go up and down a bit, but the goddamn Adeptus Custodes. This is what happens when you give them an inch. Custodes got a 55% win rate again. I'm making the editing really hard for everyone right now, because I'm talking about Custodes whilst eating, and it's gonna make it really hard for him to edit out the eating whilst for the stream highlight. It's Evan's fault because that they're doing well because he left the guard for nits. Custodes, the win rate keeps going up. 55% this week against an average win rate of 52% over the last couple of weeks. 15 players isn't a dominating number of players, but on a quiet week, you might find that a lot of the competitive Custodes players have taken a week off, and they'll be back in even greater numbers next week. Like, it's not just raw numbers, but like proportional numbers as well. 3 people were able to go 4-1 with Custodes. This kind of seems to be where they're at right now. Pretty much everyone is running Shield Host, as Al told us about that last week. Basically, everyone's running Shield Host. It's the crutch. So out of 15 players, 13 of them are running Shield Host. I think the problem with Custodes, if I'm being non-facetious, if I'm being like analysing them properly, is they have really good 4-1 and 3-2 potential. And they're also a very popular army. So the problem with Custodes is not that they're broken. It's not that they're going to start winning the meta, need a nerf or anything like that. The problem that you find is that mid-tables get dominated by them, and it can be difficult playing Custodes once. It can be incredibly difficult playing them 2 or 3 times in a tournament. I have been to tournaments where I have played Custodes more than once, and it's hard. It's really hard, and it can lead to people getting very frustrated, even if I've won the games. So my concern is not that Custodes will dominate the meta. My genuine concern is that Custodes will be just good enough for them to be really, really popular, and they'll be just powerful enough. They'll be infesting the middle boards, and they'll be just common enough that people get really fucking sick and tired of playing them. That's where I think Custodes are right now. I think they've got a few viable builds. I think they can go 4-1. They'll probably sneak a win at a local RTT. They might get a GT, although we've not seen that yet. But that's where I think they are. And so my concern isn't really about Custodes, because they're a totally fine faction, you know. My concern isn't that people will get fucked off with Custodes being powerful. My concern is people will get bored of constantly running into them, and that could be very dangerous for the overall health of the community. If you're like, I don't want to go to tournament, why? Because we've got to play fucking Custodes 3 times. What's the point? Yeah, I guess that would be my larger scale concern about all of it. Boiling it down to, let's just keep things focused on the Custodes and not the big picture. I think that Custodes are in a very, very curious place right now. They clearly have power. 55% win rate. We've seen them have above 50% win rate last week as well. We've seen the player numbers going up. They clearly have power. They might end up being in a Chaos Demon situation. Or Chaos Demons might be breaking out of that now, but what was traditionally a Chaos Demon situation where they can go 4-1 for days, then go 3-2 for days, but they just don't quite have the jank to go 5-0. But one thing I can say for certain is that with Custodes even being remotely viable, we are going to see their population numbers explode. They're very easy to build and paint, and a lot of people have them as a second army. A lot of people have them as their go-to tournament army. They play something else for fun, but they play Custodes at events. We'll see. Next, we have got Blood Angels. Blood Angels! I'm digging it. 57% win rate. That is up from 55%. 14 players. And almost half of them were able to go 4-1. Everyone ran Sons of Sanguinius. No one even tried anything else. That's pretty big. What's interesting is that Blood Angels have been doing the same shit since the beginning, and they're in a very similar place for Custodes, yet there doesn't seem to be that negativity surrounding them. But I would say that Blood Angels, it's business as usual. They're running at people, they're chopping at people, they're adding a little bit of fire support in there. They can soften the enemy up. There's nothing really new to report with them. What I want to see from Blood Angels is some consistent tournament wins. We're seeing 4-0 all the time. We're 4-1 all the time. We're seeing the win rate go up and up and up. And I think Blood Angels are now one of the undisputed top factions. But we're not seeing as many tournament wins as I would like from the faction. There must be a piece of the puzzle that is missing that allows them to do it week in, week out. Because some factions do it week in, week out, whether it's a quiet week or not. Like Guard's a good example of that. Week in, week out, we always have a 4-1 and we always have a cheeky tournament win somewhere here and there. Blood Angels, they don't quite have that consistent tournament win. It happens every so often. So Leagues of Votann coming in 4th. 58% win rate against an average of 51%. 9 players, 2 of which were able to go 4-1, but no one won a tournament. If I may explain such a radical leap from a faction that was very middling the week before, I'm going to pull it down to small faction, small weekend, flex what it can do. Next week, I expect them to be back down again. This is one of those blips, you know. We've seen it with Guard in the past, where, you know, Guard's shit, but then one weekend we suddenly jump up because it's a quieter weekend. That's where I think Leagues of Votann are. Nothing has significantly changed as faction. They've got no new units. There's no new killer combos or lists coming out. It's same shit, different day. Now, Votann generally have been very, very consistent since the beginning of the... since they had their fix, because they were bad. Since they had their fix early 10th. The big thing with Votann is there was speculation about them not doing as well when Necrons got nerfed. But it seems like Votann have stuck around since the Necrons got nerfed. Then again, so have the Necrons. So maybe they're still riding those coattails. But long story short, Leagues of Votann, they're fine, but this is a blip. Space Wolves! Ugh. Change the fucking record! Space Wolves being in the top 3. Bleh. Space Wolves still being in the top 3. Bleh. Wolf Jail. Bleh. We have had some interesting developments though. The Space Wolves actually managed to win a tournament. So the problem that I've had with Space Wolves the last few weeks is not that they win tournaments, is they basically stop a bunch of other people from winning tournaments. And it's like, it feels really vindictive. So 63% win rate seems a tad problematic versus a 56% win rate. 7 players, not a huge sample size to be fair. Probably explains why it's a bit of a jump up. One person went 4-1 and one person went 5-0. What did they win? Let's have a look, baby. Let's have a look. Hey, it's fucking Canada again, man. Not all of these tournaments can be in Canada. Oh no, there's Australia as well. The goddamn, it's goddamn Commonwealth. It's all of our damn, all the colonials. It just got cancelled. Oh no. It's 26 players. That makes sense. Wolf Jail absolutely can win a local GT, 100%. They just don't quite have the shenanigans to go on to go all the way in a super major. Little bit of interest, intéressant, as they say on the continent, or as they say in Quebec, intéressant. So, Stormlands had a 63% win rate and went 4-1, but didn't win the tournament. They didn't win the tournament. What won the tournament was the Champions of Rus. Now, there has been some shit, and dare I say chat, around the proverbial internet water cooler about, is the new Champions of Rus better than Stormlands? I think it's too early to tell. I also think the sample size is very, very small. But this is clearly an indicator that is the way. Maybe finally the Space Wolf meta is evolving. Or maybe it's just a new form of bug, some kind of higher brain that we've not encountered before. Frankly, brain bugs? Frankly, I find the idea of a Space Wolf player that can think offensive. True. What I want to know is it Wolf Jail but with a different attachment, or is it a very, very different army? I'd love to see the list. If anyone's got the list for that Space Wolf army, I'd be very grateful for it. If someone's going to tell me if it is Wolf Jail, that's fine. Either way, Space Wolves won a tournament and they won it with Champions of Rust. That is a significant development. That is worth watching. That is potentially an indicator of the Space Wolf meta changing, and I'm all for it because I'm fucking sick of Wolf Jail, frankly. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So this is the point when Godlike Poet jumps out of the chat and says, "Sisters aren't overpowered, the nerfs weren't needed." Godlike Poet, I think at this point you have to admit that is bollocks. Because the sisters are clearly a fucking problem. Because they got nerfed. They got hit harder than I do after my dad's had a few drinks at Christmas time. Alright? And it's... the nerf bat it came in, but the problem is that the nerf bat came swinging in, and it hit the sisters about right between the legs. But unfortunately, there were no testicles for it to powderize, and instead, what has happened is they have absorbed the blow, apparently got off on the blow, and have now come back, and they are now pegging us. That's what's happening with the sisters. They are strong. They are very Godlike Poet. No, I'm gonna get nerfed before I can try the really cool stuff. Didn't I say he'd pop up? I told you he'd pop up the moment I started talking about sisters. Godlike Poet. I think you have to admit your doom and gloom was premature. Like my ejaculation. Now, joking aside and disgusting metaphors and imagery aside, this is a cause for concern. Alright? As Beergeist has said, this is what happens when you try to whip an army of flagellants with a Nerf whip. It's true. It's true. They just like it. They're into it. 65% win rate is a bit of a jump from 55%. 13 players, with 3 of them going 4-1, an additional 2 winning events is big. The fact that the majority of players are all taking Bringers of Flame, the fact that this 65% win rate is actually being held back. Okay? Because the Army of Faith, the Penitent Host, and the Hallowed Martyrs, they all got 60% or less. The actual win rate of sisters is this one. 71% win rate. Oof! Oof! Suit you, sir. Suit you, sir. 71% win rate. Over half the players taking that detachment. That's where one person went 4-1, and another two actually won with that detachment. What did they win? What did they win? Was it? Let's just scroll to the top and work down. They won a 52 player event in Australia, and they also won a 29 player event in the US. 5 rounds, 5-0. So spicy. Now the Australian meta is a little different. It's bit upside down. No, I know. The Australian meta is a little bit different. And the US event was sort of a smaller event, like 29 player event. But regardless, it's 2 wins after hard nerfs. It's a very high win rate. I think this win rate is probably quite large. I don't know if I expect it to continue to go that high up. But I think even if this is a slight spike, I think Sisters' win rate is going to remain high, and I think their ability to win tournaments of various sizes is going to remain high, and I think that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I would suggest that Sisters are going to catch, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2 more rounds of nerfs. The big question for me is, will GW hot patch them? Hot fix them? Some people may say they need it, but bear in mind that Sisters got preemptively nerfed, and bear in mind that GW did a couple of updates very quickly back to back, and they got a lot of negative press. Even though a lot of the updates ended up being positive, the number one feedback that a lot of people had was, yeah, great GW, that you've done a good job and you've fixed a lot of things, but we're tired, boss. Tired. So I suspect that we're going to have to live through some Sisters pain, because GW will be hesitant to keep changing things. Like, they'll change things every 3 months, but they can't be changing things every month. They can't, and I wouldn't want them to. I'd rather live through 3 months of pain, but then just have a nicely well thought out and baked change, than just knee jerk. I've only got so many knees that could be jerked off. All right, there you are. Now, so I think, by the way, long story short, I think Sisters are the new top army. I think they're the inheritors of the meta. I think they'll go up and down. Like, Necrons weren't always top of the pack. There were always weird ones that managed to beat them. But I think Sisters are where Necrons were. They're near the top. Drukhari! Coming in top spot. A surprise, to be sure. A welcome one. And a phenomenal result. Drukhari winning the largest event of the weekend, having a 70% win rate, and this time everyone remembered to run Sky Splinter Assault. There was not like there was never that random guy, real Space Raider guy wasn't here this week. 70% win rate against an average of like 57%. 10 players, 6 of them went 4-1. 6 of them went 4-1 or better. So 4 of them went 4-1. 2 of them won events. That's really, really spicy. I think it's a blip. What do they win? 5-0 at Germany. Evolve, my dear. They went 30 players, 5 rounds. Then the one in Spain. Yeah. 62 player, and that's a major right there. That's a big GT. 5 rounds. Yeah. I suspect this will be a spike. But we have seen that Dark Eldar win rate creep above 50% and kind of stay above 50% week on week. go back through it, I bet you'd find Drukhari being like weirdly good week in, week out. They're very fast. They have a lot of disposable units for secondaries. Two things which have the potential to be highly prized in Pariah Nexus. It feels like Sisters have the raw power. It feels like Dark Eldar might have a few aces up their sleeves. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit more of this kind of stuff from the Dark Eldar. But it's a quiet week, and weird things happen in quiet weeks. What's tempering my... What's stopping me from just dismissing it is the fact there's 10 players here. That's not an insignificant sample size. And what's stopping me from dismissing it is the fact that this isn't the first week where they've had a high win rate. Sisters of Battle seem like the obvious choice. Drukhari might be the underdog that takes the crown when no one's looking. Swordsman's 87. Art of War said they're the solo S tier army. If that's the case, wow. What a turnaround. What a turnaround. Considering where they were at the beginning of the edition, my God, sir. My God. Oh. And look at that, guys. We actually got through all of the metadata in a fucking reasonable time. Thank you for your amazing support. Thank you for being the best goddamn community on the internet. And I hope you guys have enjoyed today's stream. And as always, see you guys next time. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.